would you think of a father who loved his son? In fact, when the son did good things, he would come to him and say, "Boy, that's my boy. I love and appreciate you." But when the boy did something wrong, the father would say, "That's not my boy. My boy would never do something like that." You know, if we looked at a father like that and watched it long enough, we'd probably say that that's a terrible father. But that's exactly the concept many people have of God. That when we do good things, God opens up heaven for us to come in, but when we do bad things, God turns his back and rejects us. Is that the concept you have of God? You know, when we talk about security of the believer, we talk about a God who loves us enough that even when we mess up, he's willing to care for us. I'd be interested in your comments. Won't you share them?
Jesus.
One of the biggest reasons people today share with me that they don't believe in security of the believer, meaning once saved, always saved, is the idea that we have a tendency to look at things from a human perspective instead of God's perspective. What I mean by that is, you know, we come along and we use a lot of illustrations. We say, well, how could a person commit murder be a Christian? Or how could a person who commits adultery or one of these kind of sins, how could they still be a Christian? And yet, look at it from God's point of view. If you remember, Jesus said, "You say you shall not commit a murder, but I tell you, if you're angry, you've already committed murder." Or you say we're not to commit adultery, but I say if you lust upon a woman, you've already committed adultery. So in reality, looking at it from God's point of view, sin is sin, and sin separates us from God. That means we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and only God's mercy and God's love can overcome and forgive that sin when we turn to him. He offers freely to all who will accept it. Would you be willing to do that today, if you haven't already?
Jesus.
In Luke chapter 15, Jesus tells the story of the prodigal son. It's a story most of us have heard all our lives. But you know what's amazing about that story? That son left the father. He left him geographically because he went to a far country. He left him behavior-wise because he acted totally contrary to the father's value system. He left him in lifestyle, did things that the father would never have done. He left the father. But then when the son came back home, the father took the initiative. When he saw that son coming over the hill, he ran across that field, threw his arms around his son, put the robe on his shoulders, put the ring on his fingers, sandals on his feet, killed the fatted calf that they might have a big feast going on. Who was the hero in that story? It was not the son. It was the father, because of his great love for that son. If the son had been able to work hard and work his way back to the father, he would have been the hero. But this story is all about the father. The father's love, the father's concern. And Jesus goes on to say that that father was his father. And that's the way God looks at us. That's the way God cares about us. Share with me some of the ways that you feel God loves you and God has shown his love to you.
Jesus.